Hello everyone, this is Francis Tapon with WanderLearn, where we explore travel technology and transformation. And in this episode, we are going to be discussing Tanzania. Yes, that wonderful country in East Africa. I'll be interviewing Frank Isaac, and I'll be asking him some of the following questions. For example, how's the new government fighting corruption, and is it working or not? Are men never at home? And is that kind of expected? I kind of noticed that a lot of African men, they don't spend much time at home. And I was just curious about that, and I wanted to ask him about that. He also lived, by the way, Frank, lived in Uganda. So he lived there many years. And I wanted to know, how are Ugandans different than Tanzanians? Because we tend to think of Africa as one country, and certainly even just East Africa as one big clump. We dive into a little bit some of the subtle differences. Also, dating. How is that life? Do people date between tribes? Does that exist? And how many tribes are there in Tanzania anyway? What about polygamy? Is polygamy on the rise, on the fall? Are men providers or not? What about witchcraft? Is it a big deal? Are people really into witchcraft? What about, are they into fidelity? And do men spend much time with their children? And do men impregnate women and take off? These are controversial subjects, and you'll want to listen in. It's just a 30-minute episode, so listen in to Frank Isaac from Tanzania.
My name is Frank Isaac. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also a trader. I trade in digital currencies and Forex.
Very nice. Okay, so speaking about trading and business and things like that, that's something you know a lot about. Right now, Tanzania has got a new administration. Well, it's not that new, but anyway, they've got a guy who's really trying to weed out corruption as president. How's it working? What do you think is your take here?
Well, different people have different opinions and maybe perceptions, but it's mixed ideologies, because some people think we're doing much better, some people think we still have corruption, so you can't really tell what exactly is going on. It depends on where you are or who you're dealing with. Yeah.
You know, one thing I've noticed that's pretty common in Africa is the men tend to be out all day, and they're not really homebodies. In other words, they don't stay home all day long. And I've noticed, I've been staying with you for about a week here, and you and your roommate Justin are so infrequently in the house that I joked around saying you're one and the same, because I never see you in the same place twice. Because so, do you agree that that Tanzanian men are kind of, and maybe you lived in Uganda for 10 years. Do you think there's a commonality there that men are kind of like expected or either like to? I don't know what it is. Why are men gone away most of the day outside, or is that just an illusion?
Times have changed. I think it's not the same lifestyle we used to have before, and it depends also if you're maybe employed or are you self-employed. So right now it's quite a challenge for self-employed or entrepreneurs. You have to work longer hours. I would say there's probably less opportunities than there was before. So you probably have to push till the last hour, So,
but even when I go to villages in Africa, even there, where the men are usually out of the house, they're either in the town square sitting under a tree, or just out in the field doing something, or with the goats or the cows or something. They're out as well. You rarely find a man who's just staying at home with the children and not moving much.
I would say culture-wise, for most of the Africans, the man is supposed to be the provider.
Right.
So you find yourself eventually working more, because you have dependence. Even if you don't have a family, but you will find yourself in a situation where there's more people dependent on you. So eventually the man is gonna work longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the differences. A lot of times Americans and others, kind of just think of Africa as just one culture, one person, one place. And so since you lived in Uganda, which is neighboring Tanzania, how are Ugandans culturally or in any way different than the Tanzanians? When you think of you, can you kind of like characterize the stereotypical image of a Ugandan versus one that's somebody from Tanzania? What comes to mind?
There are a few factors that make us different. Traditionally, somehow we may differ in culture, but also we have countries that have had more colonial residents than compared to other countries. For example, Kenya and Uganda and maybe Malawi and Zambia. They have more Western residents compared to we Tanzania. And somehow they have adopted more Western culture than Tanzania. So there's a little bit of more Western influence in those countries than Tanzania. But also the education system, our the curriculums that we do have. Tanzania has adopted more Swahili. We're more of a Swahili speaking, and it makes us a little bit different compared to other countries that are they have their indigenous groups and their local languages, but they have adapted more to English as a language and even the culture. So eventually it makes us very different. And
that's interesting, yeah, because I think that if you look at the speakers on the street of Tanzania, it's very hard to find somebody who does not speak Swahili. I mean, It's pretty much the language, the go-to language. Versus in Kenya and Uganda, even though it's supposedly a Swahili zone, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of people who don't speak it. Am I right?
True, very true, very true.
What percentage of Ugandans, since you were there for about 10 years, you were living in Kampala, the capital?
Kampala, yes.
Okay, so what percentage of them would you say, could speak pretty fluent Swahili?
Fluent, not really. Maybe if you say out of 10, probably 1, and that wouldn't be so fluent actually, because in Uganda, it was known as a language for the army, people in the army, or it was a language that was used during liberation.
So which country besides Tanzania has 100% penetration of Swahili?
I would say Kenya, very close, Kenya and Congo.
Really? Yeah. Kenya?
Not close to 100%, but it wouldn't be 100%. But
maybe half?
Maybe 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
60, and then Congo also. They speak Swahili quite.
Okay, but you haven't been to these two countries to test out this?
I've been to Kenya.
Okay, to Kenya. Okay, yeah. And so then there on the street you found people who could speak.
Yeah, it's widely spoken.
But their accent is kind of funny.
I wouldn't say funny. We just happen to speak it different. It's like
somebody from Texas versus somebody from New York.
Exactly, right, exactly. Right. Or French guy speaking English or Spanish guy speaking English. So
right.
It's an accent.
Yeah, sure.
It's an accent.
Let's talk about dating. I like to explore the unseen sides of Africa. So tell me a little bit. You're a single man, and there's pressure for you to get married, isn't there? How old are you right now? And then when do people expect you to get married?
I just turned 30, and
Time's up.
It's pretty much an age, I think, everywhere across the world. Maybe people would have some expectations.
That's true.
Because with parents and maybe the community that is surrounding you, usually that's the age that many people tend to marry. So there could be a little bit of pressure here and there.
How many tribes exist in Tanzania?
To be very honest, I'm not sure, but I think
50?
No, way more than 100.
Okay, more than 100. Okay, good.
100 plus. 100 plus.
Fine. So is there no pressure on you to marry within your tribe ethnic group?
We have some tribes that are quite I would say more dominant, if I would say so.
Changa?
Yeah, like there's huge big tribes like the Chaga, the Skuma,
Do they put pressure on themselves to... What tribe are you in, by the way?
Actually, mine is very...
Small?
Very, very small, minute.
All 5 of you? There's just 5 of you left?
Probably less than 100 or something. And you'd be surprised, not even many Tanzanians know about my tribe. I'm Pimbwe.
Okay.
Pimbwe.
Okay, but when, let's say you meet a girl and she asks you what tribe you're from, first of all, do they even ask? Do they even care? Or nobody cares?
Yeah, a lot of people tend to ask, especially when you want to know each other deeply. People want to know where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think that being from a tiny tribe, does that help, hurt, or make no difference?
It helps. It's to my big advantage because people don't know exactly.
They don't know that you're all criminals.
Yeah, so it makes it easy for me to actually interact with people because maybe they're more keen to know exactly what my tribe is and maybe who I am, compared to the big tribes, because bigger tribes, then there's common characteristics about them.
Yeah, sure.
So people kind of tend to judge, and so somebody may not have to ask much because they'll sum up with what they already know, which I find it a little bit boring.
Yeah. They definitely prejudge. It's the same thing that happens in America. If somebody's from New York, then it's, okay, you're from Manhattan. I already know what you're all about. I don't need to even ask you anything. It's the way human beings work, I think. So then are there arranged marriages or never?
I think that's way back. There used to be.
What about polygamy?
I know there's I think it's more religion. Some religions still practice that polygamy.
So the Muslims still actually do it? Because there's some Muslims who, in Islam officially you can have 4 wives, but a lot of them don't.
A lot of them don't because of...
Economics?
Economics.
Mm. Yeah. So, but polygamy is legal in Tanzania, right? You can do it if you want to. It's not like the government's going to stop you.
I'm not sure about the government's...
what percentage of men do you think are polygamists? Let's say 10%?
No, very few actually.
Okay, 1%, 2%?
Maybe max 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe Islam because of Islam, but the rest, traditionally, not many do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so not too many arranged marriages, not too much polygamy going on. So do people meet people on, just social events, social media, dating sites? Are dating sites popular here or not really?
Dating sites? No, I don't think so. But I think socially, it depends with where you're interacting, where people are gathering. It could be work. I don't know, work. Mm-hmm. A lot of people still think churches.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me ask you a different question as far as the power dynamics of a relationship. Before I got married, I dated lots of African women. I didn't date people in Tanzania, but there's kind of this implicit expectation that the man becomes the provider right from the get-go. In other words, he pays for everything and, in fact, gives the woman cash. Mm-hmm. Just as here you have a few dollars, go, this is your spending money. And it's not just take her out to dinner or do something like that, but actually here's cold hard cash. And in America, if you just gave a girl, let's say $10 or $20 and say, here you go, have a good day, she would just be furious and think, what do you think I am, a prostitute? But in Africa, it's a very normal custom. And would you say it exists alive and well here in Tanzania too?
Very true, very true. We have, because if you look at it, realistically, we have a very, I would say, a lower employment rate. So even with the skilled labor, we have less skilled labor than compared to many countries out there. So you find that most of the jobs will call for manpower, and maybe it's believed that man has got more power, man can work more, and probably the lady can work less. And besides that, maybe because of family, the lady or the mother or the woman can take care of the family better. So it's a distribution of maybe responsibilities. So if you look at actually compared maybe to the Western culture, the man maybe can equally raise the children, but here men spend less time with the children unless you have that kind of, you've chosen to adapt also. So automatically you find men being forced to work more, so they provide more. And
why do men not spend much time with their children?
Simply because they work more.
But sometimes even if I see an unemployed guy, it doesn't seem like it's a big priority. It seems like culturally, men are not expected to necessarily spend a ton of their time with their children. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think those are just a few exceptions.
Okay. Then what about these men? Let's talk a little bit about fidelity. What percentage of men who are married do you think are faithful to their wives?
I think that would be a very, very personal.
No, I know it's personal, obviously, and I'm not asking you. Because I know you. But I'm just saying that it's what your friends, you've observed the society, you've lived here all your life, except for those 10 years in Uganda. Yeah. But what percentage of men do you think would be faithful in your eyes? I know it's just a guess, it's just a guess, but are we talking 10%, 50%, 90%? Ballpark.
It's a crazy one.
Or just a zone, a range. Is it the majority who are faithful or majority who are not faithful?
It will be easier to answer that, because if you look at it, I'm a bachelor, so most people I socialize with are bachelors, and I'm not into the bigger cycle of...
Okay, well then we can talk about bachelor men, who are dating some girl, who are like in a, kind of a regular serious dating relationship. They got a regular girlfriend. What percentage of those guys are faithful to their girlfriends?
I think until somebody has not taken the decision to marry, you cannot really rely on
their fidelity.
Exactly.
So you think it's pretty high that there's infidelity going on the man's side. What about the women's side? Do you think it's the same thing, or do you think women are much more faithful to their men?
Well,
I know again you don't know.
Yeah, you can't tell, and I think it depends with the...
I mean, you can know sometimes if, let's say, you start dating some girl, or you're having sex with her, and then all of a sudden you discover that she has a boyfriend, and then you say, okay, well, I guess she wasn't faithful.
To be very honest, I think the ladies are pretty much faithful, pretty much faithful, and maybe for the guys it will be because of different pressures, maybe pressure to get married, pressure from work, pressure from other social challenges, so I think pretty much the guys got too much stuff in their heads.
Do you think it's the same story in Uganda?
I would guess everywhere, yeah.
Okay. And do you think that things are changing in that aspect? I mean, now are women becoming more, they're working more, and so they're feeling less dependent on guys? And
true, because sometimes it's disappointing to be dependent or to rely on the man. So especially with the new generation that is much more exposed, and it depends with somebody's background also. But a lot of young people, they're more self-dependent.
And then do you look at, let's say, Uganda and Tanzania, which country do you feel more optimistic for as far as the future of the country? And, if you were to pick a place to live, would you, assuming you're not from there, if you're, let's say, an American coming in and you want to either invest or live, where do you think, which land has more opportunity at this point in 2018?
2018, I love my country. I believe we have quite a few challenges at the moment, like very many other African countries.
Uganda has their they have their own challenges. They also have a dictator. It's been there for over 30 years.
I think with them it's more of consistency, maybe. Though their government is a little bit different from ours, but they could have more consistency than we. Mm-hmm. So
in that sense, it's a bit stable. It's better to have a stable dictator who's actually not horrendously terrible.
I would say they have more stability than us.
Right, and same thing with Rwanda. They have had the same guy.
Very true. Very true.
For Paul Kagame's been there for decades.
Yeah.
I think about 20 years or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you think that you at least would appreciate. You wouldn't mind having somebody be a dictator in Tanzania and giving up a bit of your democracy if at least he was a mediocre to above average dictator.
But that's not where we're coming from, so that's why it's a challenge right now. People are not...
You've never had... Well, actually, your first president was pretty much a dictator. I mean, he was there for...
Because we were a one-party country, and we were a socialist government before.
Do you think that socialism still's... It seems like it's still in the blood of Tanzanians.
We've tried it until we adopted... a little bit of capitalism, and we seem to be trying to go back, but we don't know. For example,
I remember I was interviewing Gloria, and she was talking about, hey, the government's not giving us jobs. The government is not giving, I can't find a job in the government, as if the government was the main provider of jobs. And when she made that comment, I thought that was very interesting. I was like, in America, nobody would say the government is not giving us a job. The government may not be helping create an environment that creates jobs. But she was talking about the government giving you a direct job, that you're working for the government. And Americans not never, but basically don't really think of getting their job from the government. Every American thinks about getting a job from a private sector. But in Tanzania, is it a bit different?
I wouldn't, not different per se, but we have had a number of people having the same kind of mentality, but it doesn't work. I think it doesn't work anywhere in the world until you take the decision to do things for yourself. That's the reason why you're asking why are people spending less hours right now in their homes, because everybody has to take the initiative and do something for themselves, because we cannot depend on the government to do everything for you. Not everything, but even the little, because even if the government is say there is free health insurance, but you find out that you still have to go an extra amount to take care of yourself, or to have better medication, or so it will work out the same on jobs, on housing, on everything. If you need a good life, if you need a better life, you have to give yourself the good life. Mm-hmm. You cannot depend on the government, because there's so many people in the country, so you cannot be treated equally. And if you expect an equal treatment, that means with people with higher expectations, they'll definitely fall below their targets.
Last question, getting back to men and society. I wanted to know, a lot of African men that I've run into, it's a common theme in my 5 years here, is that they seem to have always some child somewhere that's from another woman, but they're not with that woman. Mm-hmm. So there's this kind of, and then a lot of women have complained to me saying, I got impregnated, I delivered a child, but then the guy doesn't pay child support, doesn't do anything. He basically just checked out. First of all, do you agree with this summary? Do you think that this is a common problem, or not? Maybe not even a problem, just a common reality in Africa?
I think the problem starts when you're not married, because if you have a child somewhere or with somebody, and then you don't end up together, probably you are not married before having the child. So, and usually after having a child, you discover there's certain things you discover. Either it's not good to have expectations, but eventually you find out maybe somehow you could have been a little bit different, or somebody had a little bit of expectations, and that could have put you separate.
Do you have a child? I forgot.
I do.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. If I was waiting for you to say no, I don't, then I would be like, that's unusual, because most men before the age of 30 have a child somewhere.
Sure.
So why is there some sort of pressure that you're like, okay, I might die before I'm 30, and therefore I want to make sure I have a child before I die, kind of thing? Does that even go through people's mind?
Sometimes, being young, you fall in love too deeply and with a little bit of ambitions. And, that is usually the age where you have a lot of targets. And to me, I thought having a child early could have been a better thing, because you want to give the best of it before you have too much responsibilities or before you get old.
It's not an education issue. It's not like African men don't know the birds and the bees and the way that you get a girl pregnant. It's not like it's not a sex education problem, right?
No, it's not a sex education problem.
So they know it's not like an accident. Like I had no idea that if I, have sex with a girl and leave my sperm in her, that all of a sudden she's going to get pregnant. It's not like it's an ignorance issue, right?
No, it's not an ignorance issue. And in terms of sex education, I think a lot of people are taught, even those that are not into school or do not have any kind of formal education, because there's usually social education programs by different, I would say, like organizations, some being NGOs, so they reach out to so many people. Even those that are not into the formal education system. Okay,
I promised that was the last question, but I just thought of another. Witchcraft. Does witchcraft, is it alive and well in Tanzania, or is it kind of a dying art?
I would say probably dying. Yeah, probably dying.
So is it just
I don't know actually, but it's less spoken. I would think so, maybe. I don't know.
So superstitions and certain things like that, do you think there are people are kind of moved beyond that? The young generation, at least?
Especially the young generation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me an example of, let's say, something that your parents might believe that nobody in your generation believes.
I wouldn't say my parents, because my parents are Christians, and I've been brought in a Christian background. But I know it's something that exists, and there's a number of people that believe in superstitions.
Right, but sometimes they might be. A lot of Christians may say, "Okay, I'm a Christian, but I believe in if I drink this potion or drink this thing, I'm gonna feel better, or I'm going to, find somebody who's going to fall in love with me, and I'm going to get rich or something like that." Right? I mean, there's Christians who believe this sometimes. No.
No, that would be confusion. And if there is one, then they would probably not say it out, because it would be
embarrassing or something.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time, Frank, spending time with us, and I wish you the best here in Tanzania, and I hope that 2020 is going to be the year where you're just going to become fabulously successful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I hope to see you again when you come back with your partner.
Okay. Well.
All right.
And that concludes this week's episode of the WanderLearn podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Here at the WanderLearn podcast, we explore travel, technology, and transformation. Now, we can't do it without your help, and I'm just going to ask you for one simple favor. All you got to do is subscribe to this, share it with your friends, review it, and send me lots of money. How hard is that? Simple. Seriously, if you'd like to see the show notes for this episode and any other episode, go to WanderLearn.com. It's always listed to the most recent episodes are first. Find out where my shop is, and if you want to help out the show a little bit, buy something from my shop. If you want to sponsor the show, you can send me an email at ft@francistapon.com. That would be great. And finally, this show was edited by Rejoice Tapon, and the music was done by David Hamilton. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.